Hi, this is Becky Gromlich with the Watercolor Classroom. Today we're going to paint a lovely hollyhock. So I already put the Frisket on, but I'm going to show you how I do Frisket. I use this PBO drawing gum, but there's plenty of other nice kinds out there. When I'm doing thicker Frisket, I use some other methods, but for the really fine hair-like stuff, I use this pen. And there's a few more that need to go in here. And you just go lightly or heavy, depending on how thick you want it to be. And I want quite a few here. They're very pale and diminished. And then before you paint, you need to wait until your Frisket is completely dry. And I'm going to start with this gamboge. I have out on my palette gamboge, azo yellow, sap green, quinacridone rose and more quinacridone rose, and alizarin crimson. Now gamboge is a very intense color, and I think I should have had just a little bit of the quin rose in with it. Little tiny bits of green. I think I'm going to get some permanent green pale out here too. Just want some of this on here in some of the places where it's going to appear. And now we get into some of this azo yellow, which this yellow is super intense. It's great. And now we're getting into some of the oranger in here. And then that quickly goes into a pale pink, so I'm watering it way down. That has just a little bit of orange in it. So I'm getting the outline, and I clearly don't have all of my drawing on here. And I'm going to rinse that off, dry my brush, and then blend these two together so that they run into each other a little bit. And that peachy color should have gone over to here. So that I can get this very wet, this very pale look. And I'm letting it go right over top of all this other stuff, and over here as well. And then some of the pale pink comes down into that. And then it goes out into some different shades of pink, but there's some darker areas right here, which up here it's so close to the edge of the paper. In fact, some of it's off of the paper that I'm gonna not get into all the little curves and stuff there. I'm just gonna put this darker pink on and water it down to different levels of darker pink to get it to go in here. But that's way too dark. Gonna make another puddle over here, somewhere in between. Dry my brush off, dip it back in just a little. And I don't want to miss the yellows in there. Then it gets into a much oranger color right here. And a brighter yellow. So now you can do this without this many changes in color and it'll still look nice. I like all the changes in color, but if you want to get simpler, you can make a pretty painting without being this complicated. Now this part here actually has this little bit of green in it. Not much. And I went a little far on that, so I'm going to lift it off. And then well, that's not it either. Redder than that. That'll do. It's not exactly perfect, but people that look at your paintings don't necessarily ever see your photo. So it gives you some fudgeability. And I get in with the pink up here so that it can run down in there a little bit. Apparently I didn't draw the edge of this one petal. I'm not going to bother drawing it in because it's so close to the edge of the picture that it's not going to really make a difference. And I'm going to put little bits of the I'm putting little bits of the alizarin crimson. Sometimes my brain and my hands don't want to work at the same time. I think I lost my place, so that's that. But the first thing I need to do is make sure that these edges don't get too sharp. So again, this is so close to the edge that I'm not going to get into all the shading that's on those petals right there because it isn't going to matter. I'll just put a little bit of alizarin in there to let you know that there's something different there. I'm going to start a whole new pile of pink over here because I'm feeling like my colors got contaminated. And get some better orange. Some of this really pretty orange. And then over here, it turns into pink, totally pink at the top. Again, these shadows are making things interesting. And I dry my brush and just bring them to meet each other. Gonna lift some of the pink and then some really pale pink, getting a whole new spot. Actually, I believe I'll leave that just because it's so wet, and I'll move to a new spot so that it doesn't all run together, and I'll fill in this other part later. All right, now this I believe is dry enough that I can get some just pink on there. And it's just, I'm just doing a wash over it. Again, it's close to the edge. It doesn't have to have perfection on it. All right, we're going to go into this last area. Another thing that I forgot to do or mention is that I usually save the main thing, the main most attractive part of the painting for later. I'm lifting a bit of this. It ran down more than I expected it would. And so I should have done this flower first. It's a little less complicated, a little easier, and then it would have helped probably some of this to happen better. So when you do yours, I would suggest that you start with this one. For enough that I may need to get new cleanup before I do the next flower. This whole top part can be this color. And then it goes into a pale yellow down here. That should have been brown. I think I put my brown in the wrong place. Can't tell. This one's a lot darker because it's in shadow. It's going to have more browns in alizarin. And it doesn't need to be as detailed because it's off here all by itself at the edge. So we're just going to get the main colors. I'm not even going to put all of those reflections in that are in there. I mean shadows. Okay, because it's just not necessary for this part of the painting. Maybe I will put a little bit. We've got our stem happening. Gonna get it done. On one side it's sap green, on the other side I'm putting some permanent green pale. And the permanent green pale is very bright. So I'm gonna lift a little bit off and let it go yellower. And then where it gets into the shadow, it's sap green. I'm gonna add some browns and make it darker. Maybe some blues too. So this bud I'm really just doing fast. And I'm going to get a bigger brush. I'm going to get one area wet, and I'm going to make it look leafy. I'm not going to worry about those little things until later. Okay, one of the nice ways to do bokeh is to drop in color and just let those colors stand as the bright coming through the leaves, trees. And then we're going to get into a much darker color. I'm going to put a little bit of hookers out there, and I have sap green out there. And I'm going to go around these. I'm just using dots for my painting, except when I get close by the flower. This looks terrible right now, don't worry. I won't leave it that way. Same with these, gonna round them up. I wasn't gonna have round bouquet, but here are 3 ways to do bouquet that are different than what I've usually used anyway. One is to get a piece of tissue. It makes less perfectly round shapes, but it's easy, and when you're doing trees and bushes, they don't really have perfectly round shapes. And I'm just picking up some of the paint in some of these places. Okay, another way is to actually paint them on just with a round brush. So we'll put a couple of really dark ones. Just a regular brush. I'm gonna make one that looks behind. And then you can also use the stencil. And for that, I am gonna have to dry my paper on that I've already started and not go very hard. I want some right against the flower, but I don't want to quite make so much disappear as I did before. Okay, so that's definitely the easiest way to make bouquet is always this stencil way. So I want to put in some color. So I'm getting some of this permanent green pale, and I'm mixing it a little bit because it's a very bright color. And some of these light ones I'm just going to twist. Get them a little bit darker. It has really popped forward because it's so bright. So when I'm done, I probably won't have this on the video, but when I'm done, I'm going to go over with a gold, brown gold. Before you take off the frisket, you need to make sure that your paper is totally dry. So I have dried it with the hairdryer. And now what I do is I take some tape and go over it again and just make sure that I got all of it. Because if you don't, see, a little bit more came off there. If you don't get all of it, it'll resist the paint. And then you'll have a weird spot. Now the frisket is off, and I'm looking at this and thinking, what color is kind of missing in there that I want to do it that color? So I want a little bit of yellow, and I think I see that I want a little bit of gamboge in going over this. These ones are pretty nice. You know, they're so fine that they don't need too much going over. I'm just doing a wash. And these ones need to be a lot darker. I'm just going to get them wet first, and then I'm going to go with what color is behind them and giving it the bent that I want it to. Like if I think it's too pink or not pink enough, then I'll add some of that color. Here they're much oranger, so we want them to partially disappear. And in here they're peacher. I'm getting quite a bit of water on, going out to these spots too, and just washing them in a little bit. And this part is more orange. And a little bit more gamboge. I'm definitely gonna do some wash. Actually, I'll do that now. If you've enjoyed this video, I hope that you'll leave me some comments, that you'll subscribe to my channel and like it. So I'm going over the background now with a gray because I think the background pops forward too much. So I have a green gray that I'm just doing a wash over all of it. Toning it down, making the bouquet soft, and disappearing into the background. The whole background has diminished, still has bouquet, still looks like the light shining through the trees. Oh, let's take off the tape and see what we have here. There it is. I think I'm ready to sign it. I sure hope you enjoyed this video. Have a great time painting, and I'll see you in the next one.